Boom! Guys, tell me I'm on time. I think I'm a minute late. It's, according to my watch, it's literally a minute late. It's a beautiful Friday, what is it, afternoon? It's 45 minutes before lunch hour, and I am going to ask you, please, if you could share this live and sort of send it out to people that you think would be interested in this conversation, I would be grateful. I really would. The very first thing I'd like to hear you tell me is this broadcast loud and clear? If you say it's loud and clear, that's all I need, and that is all I want. Although I must tell you that as far as I'm concerned, I need to make doubly certain, I need to make absolutely 100% certain that the audio is good. And once that is established, boom. Guys, tell me I'm on time. I think I'm a minute late. Yep, we're good. Although I'm not seeing, I can't see your comments on the live. If you could, who's that? Rabson, I see you now. A minute late. Not bad. Who is that? That's mwewa. Mwewa, thank you for saying that quick and see if we can get this going on. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes when you're doing a live feed, sometimes the connection is not so great. It also depends on the time of day and time of hour. Sometimes it does that, and it's never a good thing. I was... Not too long ago, I phoned Stuart Kennicor, because, you know, I love, there's certain films I think you can only experience on the big screen. And one of those films is Mission Impossible, the Mission films by Tom Cruise. And the latest installment, I think it's called Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. I saw the trailer for that, and I thought it was just phenomenally unbelievable. So I called Stuart Kennicor. There's a lady I called there, and I said, look, when's this film coming out? I think she said the 23rd or the 25th. We should do that. I'm planning to take my family to go see that. Although I must tell you, my wife is not a big, she doesn't like big action films. You know, she prefers these romantics. So we might go see that when it comes out. And please tell me in the comments below if your network is bad. Is it really bad? Yeah? Tell me again, because, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work. Here it is. We'll suss it out. We'll suss it out here a little bit. Okay. Is it still bad? Tell me if it's still bad. Tell me in the comments if it's still bad. I may have to switch. I may have to switch. Tell me in the comments if the network looks okay from my end. If you could just comment on that. All good here. Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. Well, guys, before I get into my dissertation, I have to mention to you that I just heard on the wireless that Maureen, I'll get it right, Mwewa, the Mwewa MP, has been found guilty of seditious practices. Now, it's very important to understand what sedition is. When somebody says you've been found guilty of seditious practices, you need to understand that sedition simply means inciting, or the act of inciting people to rise against a government or a monarch. A monarch is like king and queen. You know, in England, for example, if somebody's been convicted of seditious practices against the monarchy, that would mean that, you know, you're inciting people to rise up against King Charles and his homeboys. And it's against the law to do that. And I must tell you that if you listen to the videotape where Mwewa, Member of Parliament, Maureen Mwewa, was talking about how she sort of talked about how the Bemba tribe mixed with the Easterners are somehow, as a conglomerate, bigger than the UPND government. And there's this idea, she sort of peddled this idea that if we as the Bembas were to unite and to become a uniting force against the UPND, we would overcome and we would vanquish them. And then she made reference to the police service. She said that if you look at the numbers of the police, we as a tribe, together with the Easterners, we would dwarf the number of police. Now, that sort of language coming from a member of parliament. Now remember, she's not just a regular citizen. It would have been bad enough, it would have been bad enough if it was just some random chef somewhere that was talking about, that was venting about tribalism. That would have been terrible in and of itself. But it's that much worse, it's that much more sinister when you have a member of parliament, an elected public official, that talks in the way that she spoke. Because basically what she was saying was, she was in a sense trying to convince the people that she was addressing that if we become a uniting force tribally, not constitutionally, not ideologically, tribally, if we stood together tribally against the UPND, we would vanquish them, we would overcome, we would dwarf them, including the police service that is under the command of this administration. That was her line of logic. Now, that line of logic is very dangerous, because the moment you have people that talk like that, it's like slow cooking a rump steak. You slow cook it. It may not be ready now, but sometime later, it's going to be ready for consumption. And that's the sinister part of tribalism. And I tell you, there is nothing more dangerous than a people that talks on tribal lines. Because I tell you, the more we talk like this as a people, regardless of where it's coming from, whether it's from one side, whether it's from the left, the right, the middle, whether it's from the ruling party, whether it's from the opposition, whether it's from people in between, the moment we begin to talk like this, I'm telling you, we're not going to have a country. We are going to have not only a divided country, we're going to have a country that is violently divisible. And that is a tsunami that we will not be able to push back against. And so these utterances, when they are made, folks, we must push against them regardless of where they come from. And guys, it's a fact. There are elements, there are people from the left who've talked like that. There are people from the right who've talked like that. There are people in between who've talked like that. That type of rhetoric should not be condoned, regardless of where it's coming from. So this conviction of Maureen Mabonga, former MP now, because her seat is basically vacant, from Mfue, her sentiments not only were wrong, not only were they insidious, in nature, everything she said smacked of pure separatism. We don't want to be separate from anyone. We are one country. And the moment we begin to look at ourselves and to look at each other, guys, this is a lesson that by now, we've already learned this lesson. This is a past paper. There is no exam here. This is a past paper. This has been tested and tried. We have already walked down that road. We don't need to start talking about tribalism. We don't need to start talking about how the nature of division and how dangerous it is. We already know that. So why the hell are we talking about it? It breaks my heart. It really does. You know, and I think this conviction is a cautionary tale. It is a cautionary tale. We must understand that the Bembas, the Easterners, the Lozis, the Tongas, the Lubales, we don't care where you're from. Each one of us stands under the banner of that flag. And we are Zambians. That's what we are. Don't divide us. Politicians, don't divide this country for your own personal gain. Don't do that. The moment you begin to go down that road, then you've lost sight of the essence of who we are as a people. You've lost sight of service. You've lost sight of patriotism. You've lost sight of putting country first. The Word of God says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things shall be added unto you. Let's seek first the unity of this country. Of course, we're not going to always agree on everything. Come on. That's not what we're talking about. Martin Luther King once said that it's possible to disagree without being violently disagreeable. We're not all going to think the same. We're not all first round picks. But the one thing we have to decide on is that we are indivisible as a nation. Everything else will sort itself out as long as we have that core value as a people. Understand that. All right. The other day, I was looking at my messages on Messenger, and I get a message, and I read the source of the message, and it said Gilbert Liswaniso. And you guys know, Gilbert is the National Youth Chairman of the UPND, and a friend of mine, I know him. In fact, I remember when HH was being sworn in at the Hero Stadium. I was there, and I was vlogging and recording, and a couple of guys, you know, there's this idea that why ukopa? You know, these guys, these chaps thought that, you know, I was specifically recording them when I was just recording the proceedings. And I got into, you guys remember that video. I even posted that video, and they tried to rough me up, and then we exchanged words. For some reason, these guys, they didn't like the fact that I was there recording. And I said to them, I said, well, the whole essence of me being here is to cover the swearing in ceremony of HH. How else do you want me to do it? You want me to just sit here and look? I mean, I'm here to record the proceedings. So we had a bit of a tiff. And the person that came to rescue me from that debacle was Gilbert Liswaniso. And I must also point out that the guy that I had a difference and a tiff with at that time, this was in 2021, has now become a very good friend of mine. I see him all the time. Every time we go to, is it Solwezi? I always meet him there, and he always makes it a point to come over to me and speak. And when I see him, I go over to him and I talk. But at the time in 2021, we exchanged words because him and his homies, him and his posse, didn't like the fact that I was recording the proceedings. And I went through great pains to try and explain to them that, look, I'm here to cover this event. I didn't follow you. I don't even know who you are. Okay. And I said all that to say Gilbert Liswaniso was the one that came over to sort of calm the situation down and de-escalate the situation. And from that day, you know, Gilbert Every time I see him, he's always cordial to me, and he's very kind to me every time I see him. And so, and we don't often speak, you know. I think I've spoken to Gilbert maybe a couple of times on the phone, you know, but that's it. I mean, we don't always hang out. And so when I received this message and I looked at the source and it said Gilbert Liswaniso, you know, he sent me a hi on Messenger. Messenger Facebook, or Facebook Messenger. So I responded. I said, hey man. And he says, how are you? I said, I'm great. I said, what about you? How you doing? He says, I'm okay. You know, the message came back, I'm okay. And then I said to him, I said, how's P1? The message I got back was, have you joined the presidential advisory team on this group on WhatsApp? I said, presidential advisory team? He says, oh yes, there are lots of business opportunities there. I should add you to the group. I said, oh, I've never heard of that. And then I asked again, I said, by the way, so how's P1? Totally ignored that question. And he says, well, if you want me to help you join this group, tell me, and then I'll tell you what to do, the steps to take. I said, okay, that's fine, but a third time I asked him, I said, that's fine, but how's P1? His response was, everything is okay. And then I said, can you tell me who is P1? The response was, why are you asking me such questions? Right there I knew, scammer! These idiots. It was just a scammer. I said, if you don't know who P1 is, you're a scammer. Get off my page. And I just immediately blocked him. So I've been trying to send Gilbert a message that, look, somebody's using your name to deceive people into joining some group, some financial group, and it's all a scam, you know. So that's the story I had for you concerning Gilbert. The other thing was Chilufya Tayali. Many of you know that the last few days, he has gone silent. Just to bring you up to speed on who he is, Chilufya Tayali was a provocateur on Facebook, and he used to say a lot of stuff that landed him in some serious hot soup. And, you know, we've all been there. But one of the things that really put him in trouble was that he was sort of trying to get involved with getting the armed forces to commit some type of opposition against its own government, you know. And he got in trouble for that. And he caught wind that he could possibly be arrested and sent to trial for that. So very quickly, he left the country. Initially, we didn't know where he was, but through his own admission, and I don't want you to think that, you know, we did some investigative journalism and we found out where he was. By his own admission, he sort of intimated that he was in Malaysia. Did I ever tell you that I used to have a professor? His name was Professor Jim Jones when I was in college. He spent some time in Malaysia, and every story in class, every story he told was a Malaysian story. And he would always say, well, in Malaysia. So anyway, Tayali went to Malaysia, and while in Malaysia, you know, he didn't have it easy. There were times he was behind on his rent. There were times he couldn't, you know, pay for his hotel room. And then he told, you know, his followers that he was sort of asylum seeker. I'll say it right in a moment. He was an asylum seeker. And that he was granted asylum, and that the country that he was in had embraced him, and he was living a great life. And somewhere along the line, his Facebook page was closed. Now, it's very important to understand that when your page is closed, your government has nothing to do with it. Of course, people can complain, people can just like you. If you don't like this page and enough of you complain, enough of you press the right button, Facebook pays attention. You know why? Because Facebook, like many other platforms, they have guidelines. They call them community guidelines. And you must understand, guys, everyone lives in a parameter. Everyone lives in a circumference. Everyone lives in the bubble of the law. Okay? And like it or not, you know, we don't live in a country where you can do whatever the hell you want. On the street, though, that's different. My point is Facebook has community guidelines. And when you step outside of those guidelines, you bear the brunt of that decision. So what happened was that Chilfiatali's page was shut down, and he sort of bemoaned, he complained about his Facebook page being shut down. And I think in one of his posts, he said, "Why is the government closing my pages?" Well, the Zambian government doesn't have that power. The Zambian government doesn't have a button that turns off your Facebook page. Mark Zuckerberg and his homeboys, they have that power. Why? Because they've got a set of rules, guidelines that you and I have to abide by in order to exist in this space. The moment we step out, we bear the brunt of that decision. They shut you down. And it's a horrible thing, especially, I must tell you that as a social media personality, as a social media influencer, your currency is attention. And that's the new digital currency. Let me say that again. The new digital currency is attention. The number of people that watch you, that follow you, that sort of are interested in what you're doing, what you're putting out there, the community you build around your personality on these platforms, be it Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever. The attention that your audience gives you, that is your currency, okay? That's your leverage. That's your that's your slot machine. And the moment that's taken away from you, you have to start from scratch. Or as we say in Zambia, kwamba one. That's a Zambian colloquialism. Kwamba one, meaning you have to start, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. And I must tell you, if you're a creator, you know this. If you're a creator, you know this. There is nothing more unmotivating than building an audience. Because, you know, building a community on Facebook is hard work. It's not patty cake, baker man. It doesn't happen by spontaneous combustion. It doesn't happen because you click your fingers or you click your heels. For you to have a sizable, significant following, it's going to take consistency, hard work, and you have to consistently do it. You're not going to build numbers by showing up once every 8 months. No. You build numbers now. I remember, and I'll finish that thought in a moment, but when I first joined Facebook, I'll never forget my friend Mary Rose Esposito, a lady I went to college with. She was the very first person that introduced me to Facebook. This was back in 2008. You know, this was before I even knew I was going to be a social media person. And she said to me, she said, "Look, there's this thing on the internet called Facebook. You should join because all of our friends that we went to college with are all there." When I first joined Facebook, for a whole week, all I did was cry. That's all I did, because I was reconnected with friends, people that I hadn't spoken to for years. All of a sudden, in real time, we were having conversations. And that to me was phenomenal. So my point is, over the years, you know, it takes a long time of literal dedication to build an audience. And when Facebook first came out, the rules were different then. You know, we didn't, back when in 2008, 2009, somewhere there, in those days, there was no video, you couldn't do live broadcasting. I remember Interestingly enough, I remember when Mark Zuckerberg first introduced the live component on Facebook. And I remember thinking, why would anyone want to go live? In fact, in the beginning, when I first joined Facebook, I didn't even want to post pictures or show my face because, you felt very conscious about the way you looked and all. But of course, all that's changed. And when Zuckerberg first introduced live Facebook, some of you remember this. I remember thinking, that's crazy. That's insane. I could never use that tool. What the heck am I going live for? And what am I saying when I go live? Not knowing that this component of live Facebooking, live broadcasting, is going to change the topography of social media as we know it. So over the years, my point is this: when you build an audience, when you build a community on your platform, that's hard work. And for all of a sudden, for the powers that be, Facebook, when they shut your page down, they hit you in the gut. I mean, literally, it's like an uppercut that you weren't expecting. They blindside you. And all the motivation just drains out of you. Because at one point, when you go live, you're addressing more than 10 people, maybe 100 people. And then when they shut your page down and then you have to re-register a new Facebook page, it can't be exactly the same as the one they shut down. So it means that your audience have to start now looking for you. It's hard work and it's very demotivating. So all of that sort of, and I understand where he is mentally, because, there are people out there, even if you do have a small audience, depending on what you're saying, other pages can pick up your videos. But they're not going to pick up your videos every day. Okay? I mean, that's the downside to it. I remember when they closed my page, I had to, and they gave me, I think it was 14 days. I'd done something or said something that Mark didn't like. And so they shut down my Facebook page for about 14 days. So within that 14 days, what I had to do was I had to use other platforms to get my message across. In fact, Tayali's page was one of the pages that I also used to sort of get the stuff that I was doing out there. But you can't do that every day. You can't, and it costs money. I used to pay Tayali for that. I used to give him money. I think it was $1,000 for every little clip that I sent him, and I sent him a couple, maybe 2 or 3 of them. It's very expensive to do that. It costs money. So his disappearance from, of course, I don't think it's permanent. I don't think he's permanently off Facebook. But the trouble is, he's working that much more now that he doesn't have his page, because you have to start from scratch. And the only answer really, in my view, is that he just has to come home. Although by his own admission, he feels that coming home would be a disaster, naturally, because of the legal implications of that move. And he prefers to be where he is. The only thing, though, is that, you're separated from your wife and family. Let me close by saying this. I remember, and tell me in the comments if you remember this. Tell me in the comments. Remember when Tayali felt that there was no way HH would become president. There was one time he was very convinced of this. And he said that, I think that HH will never become president. I believe that so much so that if he were to become president, I would leave Zambia and join my wife in Ethiopia. Tell me in the comments if you remember him saying that. Somebody says, I hate this man. and Wupe says, and yet here you are. That's normal. It's very normal to hate someone that you're listening to, especially on Facebook. So whoever said, I hate this man, I understand you. I do. I understand you. Tell me in the comments if you remember Tayali saying Lupupa says, I remember that. Yes. Yeah. He said that if HH wins, he's going to leave Zambia and join his wife in Ethiopia, and his wife will take care of him in Ethiopia. Well, HH won. Tayali left, but he didn't go to Ethiopia. He sought refuge and asylum in a different country. And that raises the question, why? Why would you go to a different country when you clearly, emphatically, boldly said that you would leave Zambia and go to Ethiopia and your Ethiopian wife would take care of you? Why would you travel to Malaysia and seek asylum there? That doesn't make sense to me. Tell me in the comments if you've asked that question. Tell me if that sort of has crossed your mind. And so in my view, I think that everything that Tayali is going through is sort of self-inflicted. And it's a cautionary tale for all of us. It really is. I mean, I must tell you, social media, the digital social media space has evolved, and we have to evolve with it. The new laws, the new cyber laws, man, I tell you, you have to walk a tightrope. You really do. You know what a tightrope is? You know those guys that they put a rope from one building to another, and in between they have a huge stick, and then they walk carefully on this rope, and they've got a stick to balance themselves. That's what social media has become now. That's what the internet space has become now. You have to walk a tight rope. I saw, what's his name? Zakado, the boxer. He said, the video I'm about to make now, because of the cyber laws, I might get sued. Brother, I'm telling you, be careful. Be careful, because, you know, now you have to think twice. You really do. You have to think twice about your involvement and what you're going to say on social media. And all it takes is one aggrieved person to make your life hell. That's all it takes. So we all have to be careful in that regard. Lastly, let me just, yesterday when I was talking to you about the Zed farmer, there was a component of my conversation with her that I didn't talk about, and I want to talk about that today. But for those of you that missed that live yesterday, let me just bring you up to speed. As many of you know, yesterday I met the Zed farmer and her new boyfriend, Nathaniel, the guy from Nigeria. And we cleared the air on many things. The one thing that was established was that I had thought initially that she was the one that posted a photograph of her and Nathaniel. And apparently the story was, according to Zed Farmer, the both of them had gone out to dinner somewhere, and they were sitting eating, and some person came and took a photograph of them, and that picture was posted on a big platform. Well, I initially thought that she posted that photograph, and my line of logic was that given the pain, the recent pain that she's gone through, I didn't think it was wise for her to begin to, in a fresh way, publicize a new relationship, a new union, a new association in the wake of her recent breakup with that pastor. And according to Maria, she wasn't happy in that marriage with the pastor. She wasn't happy at all. According to her, she felt that he took her back 100 years. You know, according to Maria, he would make her kneel before serving him. He would give her soya chunks. He would come home from a chilanga mulilo, and instead of giving her, oh, I'm live, yeah, instead of giving her money for groceries, he would take 100 kwacha, put it in a little plate, and then leave it on the table and say, the grocery money is in there. So, I mean, this is all stuff she said. I'm not saying that, okay? And basically she was saying to me that, look, she wasn't happy in that relationship, and for the first time in a long time, she's found new love in this gentleman named Nathaniel. And the things that were said, the information that his wife, now according to Nathaniel, the woman in Botswana is his ex-wife. But the woman in Botswana says, he's not my ex-husband, he's my husband. If he wants a divorce, tell him to come to Botswana and grant me a divorce. According to Nathaniel, he says, no, she's not my wife, she's my ex-wife. So when I proceeded to show him the marriage certificate, he very quickly dismissed it as forged and illegitimate. And then I sort of asked him, I said, look, there's all this stuff about the BMW. And he was very, very clear about saying he didn't steal the car. The car was his car. It was in his name. And he produced a document that showed that this was his car. In contrast, I produced a document given by his wife that clearly says he borrowed the car and the car was hers. The car was in her name. Upon seeing that document, he very quickly said, no, this document is forged. This is a forged document. The real document is this one. And he was very adamant about, he didn't like the fact that I'd referred to him as a con man. And he said, look, I'm not a con man. I need you to understand that this is just a relationship gone bad with my ex-wife, and I didn't steal anything, and I'm not here to hoodwink anybody. And I said, look, what this is he said, she said. But he was very, very clear about me calling him a con man. He said, please don't say that because I'm not that. I said, okay, I'll give you the benefit of a doubt. But this is one thing I want to say about this, guys, and I want you to hear me. And I also want to address this to him. As many of you know, yesterday, one of the things I said to Maria was that given the things that she's been through, one of the things I wanted to do was to sort of protect her and insulate her from possible harm. And Maria was very clear. She said, look, Simon, I'm a big girl. I can handle my own affairs. I make my own choices. I chart my own path. If you want to give me advice, that you're fine to do that. But you must understand that I'm happy now. And if I meet someone new, I should be able to have that leeway to do that. But it's not your call to tell me who I should date. And of course, that's not what I meant, and that's not what I suggested. I simply said to her, I don't want you to go through any type of heartache or pain. And Nathaniel looked at me and said, I'm not here to hurt her. I love her, and I'm here to protect her. But this is what I want to say to Nathaniel, and I mean this when I say this. I say this because I want you to know, it's like one of those things where a sister has big brothers. You know, for those of you that have been married, if a girl has a father present in a home or has brothers present in a home, it's very rare for a man to mistreat a woman that has a father, a strong father in the home present, and strong brothers. It's very difficult for a man to mistreat a woman like that. And so this is me being Zed Farmer's brother. This is me being her brother. Okay? I want you to get this. Nathaniel, you say you love Maria. I'll give you the benefit of a doubt. I want to believe that you do. But if you take advantage of her, if you railroad her, if you low blow her in any way, you're going to hear about it from us. And it's not going to be pretty. I'm just saying. Okay? And I think I wouldn't be a man if I didn't say that. Okay, now because I know somebody on here is going to say to me, but mwewa, she's not your relative. Well, that's not exactly true. My history with her and her family go back a long way. Maria's Zed Farmer's mother and my father worked together very closely. Her mother was my dad's lawyer for years. And so we have a very strong family bond, okay? So and I know some of you say, well, if that's true, why did you say the things you said? Well, again, the reason I said what I said was because I really thought that she was the one that posted that picture. And my line of logic was, given the pain you'd gone through, there's no need to post a new picture with a new man because it'll attract negative attention. But she qualified it and she said, no, she didn't post that picture. Somebody else did. And I apologized for that. So now I want to apologize to Nathaniel and say, I'm sorry I called you a con man. But understand this. You hurt her in any way, it's not going to be good. And Nathaniel says to me, he says, look, Simon, I know you and my brother don't get along. And he was referring to this guy named Seer. I call him Seer Zero. Okay, he's not Seer, he's Seer Zero. Andrew. Nathaniel says, I know you and my brother, you don't get along. And I looked at him and I said, you better believe it. I don't like him. I don't like him one bit. And Nathaniel said, I know you don't like him, but my relationship with Maria has nothing to do with your tiff with Andrew. I don't want to be involved in your conflict with Andrew. Okay? I love Maria and I'm here to protect her and be here for her. And I said, hey, listen, that's between you and Maria. And if you really love her, that's great. But I don't want to hear any mess. Okay? Let's leave it there. All right. Somebody says, trust at your own peril. Hey guys, thanks for watching. God bless. It's lunchtime. What are you doing for lunch? Tell me. What are you guys doing for lunch? I did fish yesterday. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to go watch that film, Sinners. Have you seen that? My wife would never watch that. That's not the type of film my wife would watch. So I might get off work early and go see that and then go home. You know, I might go have lunch now and see what I can do. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.